You might not be burned out because you are doing too much. You might be burned out because your brain thinks you have accomplished absolutely nothing. That sounds ridiculous, especially when you have attended 12 lectures, opened 47 browser tabs, highlighted half a textbook, and submitted an assignment at 11:58 p.m. with the emotional stability of a raccoon trapped inside a vending machine. You have clearly been working, so why does it still feel like you are standing in the exact same place? Most people explain student burnout in a predictable way. Too much homework, not enough sleep, too many deadlines, too much stress, and yes, all of those things can matter. But that answer creates a stranger problem. Why can one student work for 3 hours and feel proud, while another student works for 3 hours and feels completely defeated? The difference may not be how much work they completed. It may be whether their brain received proof that the work changed anything. Imagine two students studying for the same exam. The first student completes a practice test and scores 55%. A few days later, they score 63%, then 70%. They are not suddenly a genius. They may still be deeply confused by whatever crime against humanity is happening in Chapter 9. But they can see movement. The second student spends the same amount of time reading, then rereading, then highlighting the rereading, then staring at the highlighted rereading while wondering whether changing majors would upset their grandmother. They may have learned something, but there is no clear finish line. No score changed, no box was checked, nothing announced, you are better than you were yesterday. Both students worked, only one received proof, and that proof may matter more than most students realize. Modern life gives us progress signals constantly. A message gets delivered, a video loads instantly, a food order moves from preparing to on the way. Then university hands you a goal called, do well this semester. Excellent. Very clear. You might as well write become impressive on a sticky note and hope for the best. Large, vague goals make progress difficult to see. Get better at chemistry has no obvious ending. Finish 2 chapters does. Improve my practice score by 10% does. Submit the first draft by Friday does. The work may be similar, but the brain receives a very different message. One goal says, keep going until your soul leaves your body. The other says, reach this point, then stop. But unfinished work does something stranger than make you feel guilty. It can follow you into the exact moments that are supposed to help you recover. You leave the library, but the assignment comes with you. You eat dinner, but part of your brain is still editing paragraph 4. You watch a movie, but every quiet scene gives your conscience enough room to whisper, you know the midterm exists, right? Technically, you are resting. Mentally, you have 30 unfinished tasks sitting around like unpaid interns demanding supervision. This is why recovery is not only sleep or entertainment. Students may also need psychological closure. That is the feeling that something has actually ended. A task is finished. A decision has been made. A chapter has been closed. But there is a problem. The moment students hear this, many try to solve it by becoming even more productive. They make longer lists. They download another planning app. They color code the calendar so aggressively that it looks like a weather radar during a tornado. Then they fill every empty space with work. And somehow, the productivity system meant to reduce stress becomes another full-time job. The reason is simple. Organizing work is not the same as finishing work. A perfect schedule can still contain vague tasks. Study biology. Work on essay. Review notes. Those tasks can consume hours without ever feeling complete. So the real goal is not to plan every minute of your life. It is to define what done means before you begin. Instead of study biology, try answer 20 practice questions and review every mistake. Instead of work on essay, try write the introduction and choose 3 sources. Instead of review notes, try turn lecture 5 into 15 flashcards. Now the task has edges. You know where it starts. More importantly, you know where it stops. But defining done creates a dangerous loophole. You can finish dozens of tasks and still make almost no meaningful progress. A student can organize folders, rename documents, adjust fonts, build a beautiful study playlist, and spend 40 minutes choosing whether the playlist cover should be blue or slightly different blue. Technically, things are getting completed, but nothing important gets closer. That is productivity theater. It looks busy, it feels organized. It achieves roughly the same thing as rearranging chairs on a ship that is currently on fire. So, visible progress is not enough. It has to be progress towards something that matters. And there is a simple test that separates real progress from productivity theater. Before beginning a task, ask two questions. What does finished look like? And will finishing this meaningfully improve my situation? The first question gives you closure. The second gives the work direction. That second question protects you from spending 2 hours perfecting notes for a topic worth 3% of your grade while ignoring the project worth 30. It also explains why tracking the right information can feel motivating. A student who sees a practice test score rise from 55% to 70% has evidence that their effort is working. A student who finishes endless, ungraded readings may still be learning, but the improvement is harder to see. This is where tools like Tutor Tech AI can become useful. A completed lesson or a changing quiz score can leave a visible trail. The number itself is not magic. The value is that it shows the student that yesterday's effort did not disappear into a black hole. But this idea has limits, and ignoring them would make the advice dangerous. Not every case of burnout comes from invisible progress. Serious stress, depression, anxiety, financial pressure, health problems, and difficult life situations cannot be fixed by a nicer checklist. Sometimes a student needs professional support, fewer responsibilities, or a real change in their situation. A productivity system is a tool, not a wizard. Still, when the problem is endless effort with no visible movement, clearer progress can change how the work feels. The goal is not to glorify working constantly. It is not to squeeze productivity from every waking second. And it is definitely not to survive university through all-nighters, caffeine, and the powerful healing properties of pretending everything is fine. The goal is to make important work feel finishable, break large goals into shorter milestones, track improvements you can actually measure. Decide what done means. Choose tasks that move something important forward. Then, when the task is complete, allow it to be complete. Because students are often told they need more discipline. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they have been disciplined for weeks. They just have no proof that the discipline is working, and a person can survive difficult work much longer when they can see where it leads. Burnout is not always your brain saying, "I cannot do this." Sometimes it is your brain asking, "How much longer am I supposed to do this without knowing whether it matters?" The answer may not be to work harder. It may be to make progress visible enough that your effort finally has a destination. You were never standing still. You just forgot to leave yourself a trail. And if your brain cannot see how far you have already traveled, how long will it keep believing there's no point in taking the next step?